Hi and welcome to another Conversations with a Dog Trainer video. If it's your first time here, welcome aboard. If you've been here before, welcome back. I want to break down an email that I was replying to earlier today. I'm going to be working with this dog owner, and the email has a lot of very common stuff that I see that are just giant red flags for people to know about. And if this video can reach you before you do any of these things with your dog, then great, that is the intent. The old ounce of prevention versus pound of cure, as it were. So I get tons of emails about reactive dogs, dogs with behavioral problems, aggression. And this one has a lot of red flags that I want to go over with you. So we'll leave out the names, of course, and even the breed of the dog. But I'll give you the pertinent facts, and there's a lot that we can really unpack here, but I'm just going to get to the main key points that I want to discuss for brevity's sake. Otherwise, this video is going to end up being about 4 hours long. So, hello, I've got a 2-year-old neutered small breed dog. He started showing signs of reactivity at 7 months old, and then in parentheses, did not get attacked. So I guess the owner's trying to let me know that the reactivity is coming from within. The dog hadn't had anything bad happen to him. Since then, he's been reactive to dogs and people everywhere we go. We previously worked with a behaviorist that recommended dog parks so that our dog learns, in quotes, dog language. And he was improving until he was attacked by a big dog. Since then, he is still reactive to dogs. So there's a lot there, a lot. So right away, to me, this is all sounding very Lord of the Flies. Here, you're not comfortable with this? We're going to throw you in, and now you got to deal with it. Hope you do okay. Let me know. Give me a call. Send me a postcard. Text me. So rule number 1 of training should be do no harm. And as much as the behaviorist may have intended to say it would be good to socialize your dog, how we go about socializing is a very broad and often misunderstood topic. Dog parks are not a good place to socialize your dog. And if you're watching this and talking back to the screen right now going, but I take my dog and nothing bad has happened, you need to add the word yet to the end of the sentence. Because as someone who has been training dogs for 30 years, I can attest to the fact that they are the single greatest place to bring your dog to develop behavioral problems. They are an uncontrolled anything goes environment. There are people bringing their dogs, knowing their dogs full well may attack another dog there that very day, but they're doing it in the name of socialization. Folks, just because you do something over and over doesn't mean that it's going to work out. Now, especially if you know it hasn't worked out historically, what makes you think it's going to be any different today just because you're trying it for the 38th or 400th time? It is not a good idea. So the behaviorist saying, bring your dog to the dog park so he could learn dog body language relies on a lot of assumptions. Relies on the assumptions that all the other dogs coming in are good-natured dogs. It relies on the assumption that all the other dogs that come in are not only good-natured, but that those dogs are well-positioned to interpret the small dog with the issues body language cues. That's a lot. You're hinging on a lot of assumption right there. I'm going to guarantee you that that assumption is automatically incorrect. Let's look at a best case scenario. They bring in their little nervous dog, and dog B is a good-natured, well-meaning, super fluffy, friendly, joyous dog. But the dog's got zero interpretive skills and takes the nervous dog's sign as, just try harder, just try harder. What do you think the nervous dog is going to do? It's going to avoid. When they said the dog didn't show any signs of reactivity before 7 months old, what they're really telling me is we couldn't read or interpret his avoidance cues as signs of being uneasy around other dogs. Guaranteed dollars to donuts, that's how it goes. So the dog initially is uncomfortable, and then that discomfort and avoidance moves back as far as it can till the dog is forced into a position one day of, now I need to be proactive. I can't just back off. Now I have to chase you away. Okay? So that's how it works. Now, we are working with trainer X. So they moved on from the behaviorist to a trainer who's helped on walks. He is not reactive to people anymore unless they come towards us to say hi. Okay, so now I haven't seen the dog. I don't know where exactly we lie with this dog just yet, but let's listen to what they wrote. He's not reactive to people anymore unless they come towards us to say hi. So it sounds like a dog that just wants to have his own lane to travel in, and he's minding his business, and that sounds good to me. I'm not really comfortable with you, and if you promise me, and if you sign here, and you stay in that portion of the sidewalk, I'll stay in this one, and we can all go about our business. Sign here quickly. Make sure it's not disappearing ink. So, okay. Today, when they wrote the email, today, he bit a 14-year-old that wanted to say hi to him. So the 14-year-old wanted to say hi to him. We already know that the dog is better, for all intents and purposes, around people, as long as they're not coming towards him. Now the 14-year-old wanted to say hi to him. Why would we allow that? Because again, people think that's socialization. My dog is not comfortable with certain strangers. My dog is not comfortable with other dogs. Yet I'm going to attempt to force the interaction, even though my dog clearly tells me that he doesn't want this. So why is it being done? You know, we see examples of this all the time with dogs. A silly, harmless one is someone who wants their dog to play fetch. So they take, here, my AirPods represent a toy, and they throw the toy, and the dog's got zero interest. It's not that they casually wander over and sniff. It's not, you wind the toy up, you animate the toy, you do everything to kind of sell that toy to the dog. And the dog just is sniffing daisies or lying down in the sun. I had one of those. My old bulldog cow, that's her in the background, that blurry pic right there on the beach. She was that kind of dog. She'd play a little bit of tug when the mood struck her. That was something she enjoyed. But beyond that, and definitely not fetch. Whereas my bulldog currently, who just turned a year old, Hooligan, likes fetch a good deal. And definitely if you throw a toy, he's going to run and grab it. He'll bring it back, and he's more looking for a game of tug, but that's neither here nor there for our purposes. So you wind up the toy, you toss it, and the dog's got no interest. And now the owner is going to get the toy again, animate the toy again, go through the whole charade and sales pitch and whip the toy again. And they do this over and over and over. Who really wants to play fetch? The owner wants to have a dog that plays fetch. The dog's got no interest. So get rid of the dog. Absolutely not. They love their dog. Okay, then live with a dog that will not be the dog in your lifetime to play fetch. And that's okay, right? We don't always, unless you're prepared to get rid of the dog, we don't always get to choose exactly how things are going to go. So in this case, the dog is not social. Now, it's not as simple as a random game of fetch with our dog toy here. Now we've got to be concerned with our dog fitting into society, especially if you live in an urban area where there's a lot of people. So rule number 1, let's go back. Do no harm. You know perfectly well it's not safe for that 14-year-old to come in and pet your dog. But the 14-year-old wants it. They may not necessarily, or very likely, not know the entire story about your dog. Don't use that kid, or that adult for that matter, or that other person's dog to try and socialize your dog. So now the dog comes in. The child comes in, goes to pet the dog, and they say, I'm reading now, "We told the girl to go slowly like we always do, but out of nowhere he lunged at her. Thankfully, and thankfully they're right, She was not injured, but we do not want this to ever happen again. So I get it. That's not what they intended to have happen, and they feel badly, and thankfully no one was hurt. You tell this kid to come in slowly, the dog is already tense before the kid enters the picture. The dog is tense. The dog's got a comfort zone about as small as my AirPod case. And now we're trying to force interactions because the owners want the dog to become something it isn't. They don't understand socialization. The behaviorist and trainer they're working with clearly don't understand it. And that's at a level that upsets me because they're getting paid to train and give information. These owners don't know any better just because they don't know any better. It's not their job. They're here to learn. To force a situation like that, the dog starts out in avoidance. So let's say we have a scale here. Okay, I'll just grab this cable to illustrate. This area here is the red zone, and this area here is green and blue. And the dog is back here. I'm uncomfortable, I'm uneasy, but I don't want to harm anyone. I just want to feel safe. And that's what we call avoidance. And then somewhere in the middle here is where it can go either way, that fight or flight. And then we go further to the other end, where now we're in the red zone, and someone's very likely to get hurt. And beyond the person getting hurt, the dog is going to develop a belief system. And this is the dangerous part. Aside, obviously, from we don't want another person or a dog to get bit. The dog will learn that using aggression solves problems much more efficiently, much more effectively than using avoidance. And if we would have just allowed a dog that's not comfortable to just go about his day, if we would have done that, we all could have just got along. But in this case, we force an interaction in the name of socialization. Socialization does not, should never in your mind mean that my dog must interact with everything around him or her. That's bananas. Hooligan, chill out. I have the most social dog. I have a dog that if you hit me in the head with a baseball bat, would jump all over you to play. And then he'd wake me up and go, come on, we're playing. What are you doing? That's his view of the world around him. He's got zero instinct in terms of suspicion. And even I don't take my dog out and let everybody come into his bubble and interact with him for a whole multitude of reasons. And that's not to say he doesn't socialize with people. He socializes with people we have in the house. He socializes with people in the street. But it's done in a do no harm way. And when I say do no harm, I'm not worried about my dog harming anyone. I'm worried about other people, not physically harming my dog, but emotionally, because they don't understand. He's a bulldog. He's cute. He's got that big pumpkin head and he's wiggling his butt. And they're like, oh my God. And if I don't like your energy, I don't grant you access to my dog because he's already up here in terms of people are exciting. I don't need you ratcheting it up to where it's no longer tolerable for him when he sees people out on a walk. So they received really bad advice. And now the dog is already tentative and they're telling the girl, come in slowly. What do you think that slow body language does to a naturally nervous, naturally suspicious dog? The dog says, I really got to watch you. You don't move in a normal way. And they were probably coached to do this. And now the person comes in slowly. And in this case, it's a child. And maybe the child is a little tentative. Again, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't have all the details. But just that whole part of we told her to go slowly like we always do. So there's a lot of tension there. And then I have to assume, and again, it's an assumption, but I'm willing to bet they were holding a tight leash, possibly talking to the dog for sure, thinking that that helps. They were probably trying to reassure the dog, which just signals nervousness on the owner's part. Okay. Probably a million and one things were done wrong, but at the end of the day, that child had no business interacting with that dog. And that advice that they were given, both times, go to the dog park and as well socialize with strangers in the street. It not only harms the dog in the moment of the interaction, but it creates a belief system. And if you want to understand belief systems, here's a simple example. 4 of us are sitting at a table, and the dog goes to 3 people who don't feed him, and then sits next to me, and I say, here's a piece of chicken for your trouble. And then the next time we sit down to eat, 3 people don't feed, and again, right away, I give the dog a piece of chicken. By the 3rd meal, even a dog that's as dumb as a box of rocks is going to bypass those 3 people and go to where it got paid and be sitting next to me. And now the belief system is so powerful because the reinforcer, in this case, the piece of chicken, was so meaningful to the dog that the dog now will wait and accept some frustration and delayed gratification till eventually it happens. And even if we skip a couple of meals where I don't, the dog will still favor the person where it was fed and possibly even repeat whatever action. If it was whining, if it was lying down calmly, if it had a paw on my leg, whatever it did, it's almost like a superstition. And that's how we train dogs. So now think of what happened here. Dog is nervous around other dogs. Let's take you to a dog park. And then the dog gets attacked. So the belief system of dogs are scary was reinforced. That wasn't the goal of the owners when they set out to bring the dog to the dog park, but that's absolutely the takeaway for their dog. And then the belief of strangers are scary. And we got the dog, not we, I wasn't part of the training, but according to their email, they got the dog to coexist out and about on walks with people. And then we just had to go and screw up a good thing because we wanted to have a dog that would let some random 14-year-old kid touch it. And the dog, I knew it. I knew people were scary. And then the dog bites. And what do you think happened after the bite? Do you think the kid persisted in trying to pet the dog? Or do you think the kid pulled back, and probably the owners too pulled the dog back? So then what works best for the dog? Avoidance or aggression? Think about that. So then that quickly translates to my example of the dog going to 3 people that don't pay and then comes to me and I pay chicken. Naturally, the dog's going to go where it got paid. Naturally, the dog is going to go quicker and quicker to aggression and biting to get paid. Because ultimately, what does the dog want? It wants to feel safe. They had managed, possibly, based on what I'm reading, to have the dog feel safe and walk and coexist. But they wanted, just like the person tossing the toy wants the dog to play fetch. So they forced the situation. Now, you can look at this any number of ways. You can draw human parallels. I'll give you a simple one. I'm diabetic. You're not going to change me. You're not. I'm not going to change myself. God knows I've tried. I've worked so hard at it and I manage it well, but I'm still diabetic. And then if someone says, here, take this amount of sugar, but a little bit, just a little bit every day. So we're going to socialize you to sugar. We're going to acclimate you. We're going to desensitize your body to sugar. Anyone who understands anything about science and the body will laugh you out of the room. For some reason with dogs, we think as long as we love our dog enough and we wish it hard enough, like Dorothy clicking her heels, there's no place like home. Not every dog is born and bred to be social. Sometimes they were born and bred to be social and then they are ruined based on circumstances, trauma. And when I say ruined, I don't mean that there's no conceivable life for that dog, but maybe not the one you envisioned. Now we get to the last part. A lot of this doesn't even have anything to do with the dog. It's the owner's expectations. And this is the scary part for me as a trainer. I'm not bothered by anything I read in this email in terms of the dog's behavior. It's very steady and predictable. And in fact, the dog has been patient. So the dog displays a good amount of restraint based on the situations they've put this dog in. The owner's expectations, and this is from the email, Give me a sec here. Our main expectation would be to get rid of this reactivity and aggression towards people and dogs. As mentioned above, my boyfriend and I have spent a lot of money to help with this issue, and as much as it helped with some, others have worsened. So again, if they don't know, they don't know. And if they've been fed the wrong info by the wrong people, I'm happy to help, right? I'm not saying this to judge someone. I'm not calling them bad dog owners. But because it's happened to me on very rare occasions, and I'll make separate videos about a couple of these later on, because a couple of them were downright frightening. But the expectation to get rid of the reactivity and aggression after you've reinforced it this many times, if we reinforced feeding at the table so many times, do you think you're really going to convince the dog that it'll never happen again? The dog will never have another, even if the dog learns to stay away from the table, control itself, do you think the dog won't have another hopeful moment? Because it's not a hard drive. You don't scrub it. It doesn't just get erased and go away. Whether it's the food at the table or the fear, and not just the mistrust of the other dogs and the other people, the mistrust of the owners, because they keep forcing the dog into situations that make the dog really uneasy. So it's like tying someone to a chair and you see you're stressing them out and you just go, it's okay, it's okay. And then you tie them, it's okay. And now you're tickling them with a feather and they're freaking out. It's okay, it'll be okay. Just trust me, just trust me. The next time you invite them over to your house, do you think they're going to come over? That's what they're doing to this dog, all in the name of training and socialization. So this is bad, bad, bad stuff. And this is why I wanted to make a video about this. A lot of people have these issues, and these issues could have been very low-level issues, but they are now compounded because of the bad advice they followed and because they want their dog, remember what I said about expectations, they want the dog to be something it isn't. So we've just compounded things over and over. One last little thing I wanted to... Give me a moment here, I'm just reading. Something about no longer going to a dog park. So the dog was attacked at the dog park, like we said. Here, we stopped going to our regular dog parks because every time a new dog comes in, our dog runs and barks and attacks the new dog. I would have been more okay with that statement if it was, we were at the dog park and a new dog came in and our dog immediately went to attack the other dog. Meaning it's a singular event. They're not describing a singular event. They are describing a pattern, which means it happened. And then we said, well, gee, let's go back and try it again. And very likely happened again. And let's go try it again. And possibly because it's a small dog, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. And possibly because no damage was done to the other dog physically. But what's the takeaway for their dog? Go and attack the new dog coming in. Probably the owners, and again, assumption on my part, probably the owners at that point said, oh, okay, time to go. So what did he get? He got the safety he craved. He got the stress relief that he craved. Okay? So this is a simple little email, and I'm sure they sent it, and I've already replied to them. I'm sure they sent it in the hopes of someone could just say, yep, sure, no problem, sign on the dotted line, write me a check, send me an e-transfer, we'll train your dog, everything goes away. But we've got a nervous dog to begin with. We've got bad advice from a behaviorist and a trainer. And then we've got the owners digging in deeper and deeper and deeper into the bad advice and repeating things. Now, when you repeat things, when you do things over and over, and you create a predictable pattern for your dog, and you create a predictable outcome for your dog, right? The response, like a doorbell ringing and the dog responds, like a sit command and the dog sits, like me picking up a food scoop, a measuring cup, and my dog right away runs to where he knows his food dish will be delivered. Well, in this case, interacting with people in the street as well as going to dog parks results in the dog becoming more aggressive. So the dog believes that around his owners, and in particular in dog parks, he has to fend for himself, and the correct response to safety is to be aggressive. So they have, in the name of socialization and training, trained the dog to be aggressive, where initially he was just avoidant. And that's because it was done the wrong way, and it was done with the expectation of we can sprinkle some dog training fairy dust and just transform our dog into something he isn't. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Actually, one last thing. Avoidance is something we utilize in our daily lives. If I'm sitting next to you at Starbucks and I maybe move a little too close, unintentionally, the tables are spaced closely together. I put my bag down, I've got my iPad, I've got my coffee, I've got my AirPods, I'm in my little happy place doing my thing. You've got the option to move over a little bit. And if you've got a lot of room, you've got the option maybe to go to another table. Maybe I notice right? There's a lot of polite ways we can go about this. And avoidance is something that we can utilize to navigate situations on a daily basis. When you rob a dog who is not comfortable of avoidance, you are forcing the dog to decide now, do I fight? Do I use aggression? And you are forcing the dog to learn that dangerous lesson of aggression solves things a whole lot faster. His whole goal is to feel safe. That's all he wants. I'm working with someone right now who's got a very anxious, very fearful German Shepherd. And prior to coming to me, they worked with a couple of trainers and didn't get the results they needed. And the dog threatened strangers coming into the house, according to the owner, 15, 20 times, if not more. And the owner said something that was really astute. He can't have missed all these times. Can he? Like, she's asking me. And I said, no, you're absolutely right. So what's his goal? His goal is just, I'm trying to drive you away. His goal wasn't, I want to hurt you. I want to harm you. I want to engage in combat with you. His goal is back up. That's all it is. That's all it is. So we had a dog that was working that way, according to this email, this little dog. And then he was robbed of that option because now you can't avoid in the dog park. You go under the bench, the dog will come and sniff you out. You stand behind me, well, I'm not going to help you, and I'm going to keep bringing you here. So the dog snaps and then learns this is what works. So if you have a dog that's not necessarily comfortable, I'm not saying always avoid. I'm not saying never avoid. I don't know unless I see your dog, but you should consider it. And you should also consider, is this a good fit for my dog? Should I be forcing my dog into this situation? Is this a me thing, meaning the want of bringing my dog there? Or is this a dog thing, meaning will my dog enjoy this? Not every situation is a good fit for every dog, just like with people. So I thought I was going to sit down and make a quick little off-the-cuff 5-minute iPhone video when I read this email earlier, and I see the timer on the top of my phone. We're rounding about a half hour. So if you stuck around this long, thank you. I hope you found it useful and interesting. And I'll be back shortly with a bunch more like this because I get these emails all the time on a whole wide variety of topics. And I always thought some of these answers that I give people would be great to share with the dog owning population at large, as it were, because this is stuff that I wish would reach people before it gets to this stage. So I hope you found it useful, and I'll catch you in the next one.